So this talk is called The Two Most Important Days, Reflections on Happiness, Lasting Happiness in Living with Purpose. I've had the privilege of giving this talk around the country and in many countries abroad and at many different forums. Not only medical grand rounds, but surgical, pathology, radiology, OBGYN, and so on. And I'm mentioning that because what it says is that people are looking for happiness. And they're often looking in the wrong places. I'm going to talk about that. So let me ask a question. How many of you are happy? Can you raise your hands? How many of you want to be happier? Right? Everyone. If I'm speaking right now and we hear laughter outside the auditorium, you may say, forget this guy, let's check out what's happening outside. Right? So let's talk about that. I want to start by making a distinction between terms we often see, happiness, joy, and bliss. So happiness is a sensation. It's an inward sensation. We express it outwardly. You're walking down the corridor and you see somebody walking across and they're looking at their iPhone and they're smiling. You know, at least at that moment, they're happy. Joy is much more exuberant, but it's transient. And bliss has been called perfect joy, perfect happiness, intense happiness. And when people are experiencing bliss, they're connected with others and with nature. And if you and I want to witness bliss, all we have to do is go to a playground, see the children, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds on the slide, on the swing, not a care in the world. They're so intensely happy. And the 4-year-old stumbles, bruises his knee, and another friend comes, puts his arm around him, consoles him, and 20 seconds later, he's back in bliss. We can learn so much from children. I call them the modern-day philosophers. And I'll talk to you about some of the comments people have made when I've asked friends or faculty to ask their 5-year-old daughter or 3-year-old son, what is happiness? Complete the sentence. It's absolutely astounding, the wisdom they have. So now all the research has shown that meaningful experiences surpass the amount of happiness we get from acquiring expensive possessions. So here on this slide, you see a luxury car, you see a mansion in Beverly Hills, but then you see this beautiful scene. This is Milford Sound in New Zealand. It's one of the most scenic spots on this planet. I've had the good fortune to travel to that spot. And then you see a charity event. And if you partake of meaningful experiences, and you and I don't have to go to Milford Sound, we could go to the local coffee shop, go to a bakery, go to a movie, go to a play, go to an event. And if you contribute about 10% of your income to a charity of your choosing, then you're truly happy. What happens to lottery winners? I know a guy in Boston, he won $30 million on a scratch ticket. And a year later, he was less happy. And that's what the research shows. Most lottery winners, 10, 20, $30 million, are less happy a year later. They've splurged it. Friends have come out of the woodwork, said, pay my mortgage. How did you get so lucky? And some of them have lost meaningful relationships. The only ones who are happy are those who partake in meaningful experiences, travel. There's a guy who used to be a doorman at a Costco in the town next to where I live. And he bought a lottery ticket for $8 with a friend. He won $20 million. Actually, he won $50 million. And so they split, he got 25. And he got a passport for the first time. He's traveled around the world. He's taking care of his mother and sister, and he's contributing to charity. And when you see Reggie, he's like the happiest guy on this planet. Bliss, charity, and meaningful experiences. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you have had a recent vacation? You raise your hands. How many of you have a vacation coming up? Okay, what's wrong with the rest of you? Now, those who have a vacation coming up, can you raise your hands? Everyone is smiling. right? Just the thought of a vacation coming up will make you happy. When you're there, meaningful experiences, sunrise, sunset, the birds chirping, a round of golf, coffee shop, reading a book. And when you come back, your friends and your family will ask you, how was it? And as you're reminiscing, you'll be happy. How powerful is that? Thoughts can make us happy. So we already talked about lottery winners. Look at the flip side. One of the worst fates that can befall a human being. Break your neck and you're paralyzed for life. And remember that happened to Superman, Christopher Reeves, an accomplished equestrian. Taking part in a race, suddenly the horse buckled, he went flying, broke his neck. And for the first 2 or 3 months, there's always, almost always, a victim mentality. Why did God do this to me? I didn't deserve it. But a year later, these people are amazingly resilient. He had a beautiful wife. She was so dedicated to him. He had a better appreciation of the sunrise, the sunset, the birds chirping, friends coming and visiting. And before a year was over, this is what he said. He said, I'm not living the life I thought I would lead, but it does have meaning, purpose. There is love, there is joy, there is laughter. I worked at the West Roxbury Veterans Administration Hospital for 10 years in Boston. And we had a special spinal cord injury unit. And these veterans were so inspiring. Nobody ever talked about feeling like a victim. They were happy, very grateful. Rabindranath Tagore was a poet from India. He's the one who coined the term Mahatma for Gandhi. Gandhi's 20 years of public service in Africa, in South Africa. He said he's a Mahatma. Maha means great, Atma means soul. For the common people, he was known as Papu. Papu means father, father of the nation. And Tagore in 1912 wrote a series of poems. Short book. If you like poetry, it's the most spiritual poetry you can read. It's called Gitanjali. 1913, next year, he translated it himself into English. And he got the Nobel Prize in Literature. And Tagore once said, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. Right? One of the best ways for us to be happy is to make others happy. I was asked to give a short talk on philanthropy at a charity event, and I said, philanthropy is love for humanity. Simple definition. It's one of 3 T's. Most of us equate philanthropy by writing a check, going to a charity event, auction, bidding, donating online. That's one, treasure. But if you give of your time, if you give of your talent, you're philanthropic. So I urge everyone to do more of philanthropy. We're all doing it, we're all busy, but we can find the time. Now, Socrates claimed that his wisdom and knowledge and insights arose merely in knowing that he knew nothing. And prior to his arguing it, it was a prevalent belief that happiness was bestowed upon a select few. Who are these people? Royalty, nobility, poets, philosophers. He said, no, no, no. It can be begotten by human endeavor. Everyone is entitled to happiness, and happiness and virtue are inextricably linked. In fact, the ancient Greeks did not use the word happiness. They used a term called eudaimonia, which literally translated means human flourishing. You'll flourish in life if you're happy. So 3 ancient Greek words to live by for happiness: eudaimonia, human flourishing, blessedness, arete, always aiming for excellence, and eidos, the feeling of reverence or shame, which restrains us from doing wrong. So I've come to the conclusion, after a lot of reading, research, and talking to friends and family, and even my grandkids, that the 4 traits of the happiest people on this planet are the following. And the first one is they have a cadre of good friends. I got amazingly lucky with my parents and my one brother, Deepak Chopra. But I had no choice. I was born into that family, but you can choose your friends. Your friends are your chosen family. Robert Louis Stevenson said, a friend is a gift you give to yourself. Khalil Gibran, friendship is a sweet responsibility, never an opportunity. Now, you may or may not be aware of the longest standing study on adult happiness. It's called the Harvard Grant Study. Guess how long it's been going on? 85 years. What study goes on for 85 years? People die, people drop off, principal investigator dies, funding disappears. So a year after Hitler's troops marched into Austria, 750 21-year-olds were recruited into the study. 250 went to Harvard. The other 500 were from very poor and dysfunctional families, Dorchester and Roxbury. Yearly physical examinations, detailed questionnaires, blood tests, CRP, functional MRI, home visits. A cohort of their children, 2,000, are now being followed in a similar study. There are hundreds of publications, there are books, there are TED Talk. And who was in that study? What happened to them? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, teachers, skid row alcoholic, people with drug addiction. Some died of suicide. One of them was our president, John F. Kennedy, was in that study. And the major conclusion of the study is that loneliness is toxic. And that your satisfaction with relationships with friends is one of the strongest predictors of health, happiness, and longevity decades later. So I urge you to look up this study. And again, major conclusion, social connectedness brings forth joy. Wonderful book written by George Valliant, Triumph of Experience. And the number one TED Talk given by a physician is on this subject by Robert Waldinger, who's a brilliant colleague, bit of a friend. He's a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, based at Mass General. He's also a very interesting man. He's a Zen master. And this TED Talk that he's given, What Makes a Good Life, Lessons from the Longest Standing on Happiness, is the number one TED Talk by a physician. Number of people who've listened to it, viewed it. So I urge you to watch this. Now, loneliness increases with age and is indeed toxic. Meta-analysis of 70 studies showed that loneliness increases the chance of dying by an astounding 20%. Genes that code for inflammatory response are turned on. Genes involved in fighting viral infections are downregulated. So nurture your friendships. Celebrate everything small or big with your friends. So best-selling author James Rohn, wonderful books, he once said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. How good is that, right? If you have friends who are into drinking, gambling, smoking, you'll become like them. So choose your friends carefully. Nurture those friendships. Any excuse, somebody gets an award, a promotion, hey, let's go out. Let's celebrate. Let's go for dinner. Let's have a cup of coffee. This is a wonderful friendship blessing by John O'Donoghue. May you be blessed with good friends. May you learn to be a good friend to yourself. May you be able to journey to that place in your soul where there's great love, warmth, feeling, and forgiveness. May this change you. May it transfigure that which is negative, distant, or cold in you. May you be brought into the real passion, kinship, and affinity of belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to them, and may you be there for them. May they bring you all the blessings, challenges, truth, and light that you need for this journey. Good friends will do that. The second trait of the happiest people on this planet is the ability to forgive. Anyone listening live or by Zoom, if you're holding a grudge, you're only holding yourself back. Against an ex, a neighbor, a sibling, a colleague, a parent, a friend, my plea to you, give it up. And the moment you make that decision, you'll feel this enormous weight come off your shackles. Not easy to do. Gandhi once said, forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The weak can never forgive. The Buddha said, resentment is like holding a hot coal in your hand with the intent of hurling it at somebody who hurt you. That person's moved on. Meanwhile, you're burning your hand, right? But the greatest comment, I think, was by Nelson Mandela. How many years did he serve in prison? Don't be afraid to be right. Take a guess. 27 years. Can you imagine 27 hours, days, weeks, months? And when he's released, Mr. Mandela, do you have a resentment against your white captors? He gave the most beautiful answer. He said, I have no bitterness. I have no resentment. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. He said, as I walked out the gate towards freedom, I looked back at my cell and I said to myself, if you still harbor resentment, you'll still be in prison, right? The prison of the mind. So friends and forgiveness, there's Louis Desmedis' beautiful quote. He said, to forgive is to set a prisoner free. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover the prisoner was you. You only set yourself free. Nelson Mandela. The third trait I've derived from a quote by Albert Schweitzer. You know, he was a physician, theologian, humanitarian, Nobel laureate. He started a hospital in Gabon, Africa, with his wife, a nurse. And the Beth Israel Hospital, where Lydia and Mike and I worked, I still work there, is a sister hospital of this. And about 15 years ago, we celebrated the centennial. I was invited. I'm so sad I couldn't go. And Schweitzer was a very humble man, physician, theologian, humanitarian, Nobel laureate. Talk about humility. 1952, he got the Nobel Peace Prize. And at the ceremony, he murmured, now I have to go earn it. I don't deserve it. I have to earn it. And he once said, I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I'm certain of, the ones amongst you who will be truly happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. So I've distilled it into 3 F's: friends, forgiveness, and for others. Now, he was one day a prisoner of war. And he was German by heritage, and the French imprisoned him. And then he was asked to treat a French general with a perirectal abscess. And he's in a train going to see the general. And the train is going on a bridge over a river, and he peeks to the side, and he beholds this amazing sight. Hippopotami, and a baby hippopotamus frolicking in the river. And he always believed that reverence for truth has to be cherished the most. And as he witnesses this sight, a German phrase flashes across his mind. Erfurt von dem Leben, which literally translated means reverence, awe. And it hits him. It's not reverence for truth. Yeah, that's important. Reverence for life, the most exalted. If I give you a newborn baby to hold, you cannot but want to protect it. It's human instinct. Schweitzer taught us to have the same reverence for a disfigured leper with open sores. So the 3 F's for being happy: friends, forgiveness, for others. The fourth one begins with G. What is it? You know it. It's not God. They're atheists who do God's work. Gratitude. Now, Gandhi once said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So gratitude, ancient term, derived from the word root gratias, highly prized in all the major religions. And I'm defining gratitude as something positive gained, coupled with the realization that somebody else was responsible for that gain. I didn't call Nielsen and Meredith and said, hey, can you invite me, the visiting prof? They invited me. I'm so grateful for that, right? Somebody else was responsible for that gain. And I strongly believe that gratitude and compassion can be cultivated. And one of the easiest ways is by the regular practice of meditation. Many different kinds, they all work, not a religion. They're rabbis, priests, Maulvis, people of all walks of life, CEOs, Oprah Winfrey, prisoners, people, veterans with PTSD who are being taught meditation. In a different book I've written, The Big Five, I talk about coffee, exercise, vitamin D3, nuts, and meditation. Based on scientific evidence, you live longer. You have longer telomeres if you meditate. So I have a saying, you should meditate once a day. And if you don't have time to do that, you should meditate twice a day. Now, this is the Catholic nun study. It's a landmark study. So in the 1930s, 180 nuns joined the Notre Dame convent. And the Mother Superior says to each one of them, write down on a piece of paper who you are, what you're looking forward to. 60 years later, the researchers could authenticate the handwritings. And they classified them into low and high gratitude. Now, if you look at the first one, I think it's pretty neutral. But the second one, you see happy, joy, look forward to union, life of union with love divine. They're 23. They're all single. They live in the same convent. They eat the same food. Nobody drinks. Nobody smokes. What happened? On average, the nuns who expressed high gratitude lived 10 years longer. This has been duplicated in other studies, but this was an amazing cohort, follow-up for 60 years. So one of the easiest ways for us to be happy is to have a gratitude journal. Let's say Sunday evening, as you're reflecting on what's in store for you next week, look back at the last 7 days. Write down 3, 4 things you're grateful for. Your happiness quotient goes through the roof. Randomized study. Robert Emmons wrote a book called Thanks, How the New Science of Gratitude Can Make You Happier. And he randomized a large group. Half the group for the next 6 weeks, every day at the end of the day, write down 4 random things you did. The other half, write down 4 things you're grateful for. And the ones who wrote down gratitude, happiness quotient went through the roof. You've all heard of IQ, and you'll hear EQ is more important. Emotional quotient, nah. HQ, happiness quotient, is the most important thing. Now there's a formula. This is based on a study of monozygotic twins compared with dizygotic twins. And what it says is that our happiness, 50% is inherited. It's like the set point. It's like the thermostat in this room. Astoundingly, only 10% is living conditions. Whether you live in a mansion in Beverly Hills or the slums of Calcutta or the shanty towns of Jota, have a roof, running water, friends, you're happy. They're often more happy. I don't know how many of you saw Slumdog Millionaire, the movie, right? They are celebrating births and weddings, and they're happy. And 40% is voluntary action, what we can do to make others happy. But even this 50% is dynamic, and we can improve the set point, just like we can change the thermostat, by exercise, behavioral cognitive therapy, meditation, but most importantly, by living with gratitude. So this is the book by Robert Emmons, Thanks, How the New Science of Gratitude Can Make You Happier. Another book, Power of Thanks. Some years ago, they took the top managers of one of the top companies to Costa Rica for an all-paid vacation, 12 days. Beautiful country, right? A lot of nature, beaches, golf. Oscar Arias, enlightened ruler, Nobel laureate, the first country that banned zoos. Animals are not for our entertainment. Let them live in the wild. So they took them, bring your significant other, everything paid for. People met colleagues they had never met other than by email. They had a wonderful time in a beautiful country. They forged friendships. It cost Google 22,000 per top manager. Previous year, they had given 50,000 cash bonus. And they were asked, what would you prefer in future years? Most of them preferred this experience. How do you define life? Life is a series of experiences. They had a wonderful time. They forged wonderful relationships. Now, humor can also create happiness. Spend 10 minutes a day for a week and write down 3 of the funniest moments you experienced that day. When we laugh, we get a dose of endorphins. There's a shy young physician from Mumbai, India. Years ago, he started laughter yoga. There are now 7,000 laughter yoga clubs in the world. People get together in parks, in churches, and they laugh. They don't tell jokes. I was driving in New Delhi and there was a park, 6:30 in the morning. I'm on my way to play golf. And there are like 50 people in a park and they're laughing. And if you try laughing, it's very infectious. No jokes. Now, Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor. How many of you have read Man's Search for Meaning? What an amazing book. You know, he wrote it in 9 days. And I visit that book every year to be inspired. And he once said, happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue as the unintended side effect of dedication, of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Albert Schweitzer said, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. When you're happy, you'll sleep better, you're more creative, you have a better immune system, you'll forge better friendships, kinships, be more creative. Now look at the wisdom of children. So when I give this talk, I encourage the attendees to ask their children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews to complete happinesses. And many times people are taking notes. And by the way, you don't have to take notes. All these slides will be available by the organizers. You can download them. You can modify it. You can adapt it. You don't have to give me credit. I call it copy left. So this is a dean at Worcester College, in Assumption College in Worcester, Massachusetts. And she said 5 days later, Dr. Chopra, I went over your talk with my husband, but I took your cue and asked my 5-year-old daughter, what is happiness? And my daughter said, Mommy, happiness is when the heart feels bigger. Wow. Not sleepovers, not birthday parties, not going to Disney. This is a 2 years, 10-month-old son of a surgeon. I gave surgical grand rounds, and he met me a week later to have coffee and continue the discussion. He said, Sanjiv, I have a son, he's 2 years, 10 months. I asked him, what makes you happy? He says, Daddy, I'm most happy when I'm sharing my toys with my friends. You know John Lennon, the Beatle? He was 5 years of age. He goes to school. I'll come to that. Now look at these poor kids in India. One of them takes a slipper, prevents its iPhone, taking a selfie. They're all smiling. They're happy. You don't need a reason to be happy. Selfie with a soul, maybe we should say, selfie with a soul. And this is John Lennon. 5 years of age, he goes to school. Teacher gives the kids an assignment. Write down what you want to be when you grow up. He writes happy, and he hands it to the teacher. And the teacher says, John, you didn't understand the assignment. And he looks at him and he says, and you don't understand life. 5 years of age. His mother, every night when she tucked him into bed, said, John, when you grow up, I want you to be happy. Now, here are 5 things. Well, that's what he said. You don't understand life. So just as I consider children to be modern day philosophers, we can also learn immeasurably from fictional characters. I mean, you've all seen cartoons, Snoopy and Charlie Brown. So they're sitting watching a sunset and Charlie Brown says, we only live once, Snoopy. And Snoopy says, wrong. We only die once. We live every day. And how many of you have read Winnie the Pooh? Right? You know, Milne wrote that 100 years ago. And Winnie the Pooh and Piglet are sitting, and Winnie says, if you live to be 100, I want to live to be 100 minus 1 day. So I never have to live a day without you. How beautiful, how sublime is that friendship, that love. So years ago, I was giving this talk or a version of this or different talk at Mayo Clinic, Rochester. And I went to a coffee shop, got my coffee, and I'm waiting. I said, you know, Siri knows the answer to everything. Let me ask Siri, what is the secret to happiness? It doesn't do it now, but it did it then. I can vouch for it. I said, Siri, what is the secret to happiness? And it said, it is unequivocally chocolate. And I happened to come out, and next to the Starbucks is a coffee shop. Of course, it's 6:30 in the morning, it's not open, but there's a sign in there, and it says, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy chocolate. It's kind of like happiness. Now, here are the happiest countries year in, year out. There's an occasional variation, an annual survey. And you'll notice Denmark, Norway, Australia, Bhutan, Costa Rica, Austria, Singapore, Switzerland, Sweden, Canada, Iceland, New Zealand. Where's America? Richest, most powerful country in the world. We're 23rd. Most recently, it's been Iceland, number 1. Denmark is an amazing country. I've had the good fortune of visiting there. Very proud people. They work 30, 35 hours a week, free medical care, free education. They also partake in a very interesting phenomenon called hygge. Hygge is, if I'm in Mike Goldstein's neighborhood, I don't pick up the phone and say, Mike, are you home? Can I drop by? I simply ring the doorbell. And he's at home. Oh, Sanjiv, come on in. And you sit by the fireplace, drink hot chocolate, shoot the breeze. Friendship, conversation. It's also done in Norway. We did it in America. Now, sadly, we don't know the neighbor 2 doors on the same street. They also, this is absolutely astounding, between the ages of 6 and 16, when you go to school in Denmark, there's a 1-hour class every week, mandatory, interactive. And the kids are taught empathy and compassion. Young age. We need to do that in every school in our country. So this is the phenomenon of hygge. I visited Denmark. I came back 6 months later. I saw an article. They opened the first museum of happiness in the world. So I'm going to go back. Bhutan is a country, small country in the foothills of the Himalayas. 40 years ago, the ruler said, we don't care about gross domestic product, GDP. We care about gross happiness product. They have a ministry of happiness. They track every citizen's happiness level each year with the goal of raising it every year. Enlightened ruler, first museum of happiness in the world. Now, we've talked about 4 things. right? Friends, forgiveness for others, and gratitude. But happiness is more than the sum total of happy moments. In order for you and me to have enduring happiness, we have to find our purpose in life and live it. Mark Twain famously said, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Now, defining your purpose can come by reflecting on it, or sometimes you'll witness something horrific. And the person witnessing it has the fortitude, the grit, the compassion, the love to say, unacceptable. I'm going to try and make a difference. And they start, 50 years later, they're still doing it. It's become a life's purpose. Most of us will experience sorrow. When you experience the abyss of sorrow and emerge stronger and with a clear purpose, you will have triumphed. Look at Viktor Frankl again. He said, we who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man, but the last of the human freedoms, the ability to exercise choice. Joseph Campbell, very learned soul. In the 1980s, there was a documentary series on PBS. Bill Moyers interviewed him multiple times. Very learned soul. He knew all the religions. He wrote a book, The Power of Myth, A Hero's Journey. And he once said, follow your bliss and doors will open where there were no doors before. Now, some of you may know this individual, Abreu, economist from the country Venezuela. He passed away a few years ago. Some years ago, two people were honored to give the commencement and get the doctorate at Harvard University. It was Abreu and Oprah Winfrey. As you likely know, Abraham Verghese is going to be the principal commencement speaker this year at Harvard. What a great honor. And Abreu, economist 40 years ago, takes 9 kids off the street in Venezuela, teaches them classical music. 4 kids. There are now 400,000 children in Venezuela performing classical music. This program is called El Sistema, the system. It occurs in LA. It occurs in Boston and many European countries. 90% of these kids would be in gangs, on drugs, some even dead. A group performed in Vienna at the Philharmonic some years ago. And here you see Gustavo Dudamel, one of his kids, celebrated conductor, one of the youngest conductors in the world when he became the conductor at the LA Philharmonic. And the critics said, performance of the year. They were so impressed. So he found his purpose in life, trying to teach 9 kids classical music. You all, I think, are aware of Partners in Healthcare. Here you see Paul Farmer and Jim Kim. They were students at Harvard Medical School. I was privileged to be the director of the GI pathophysiology course. They graduated in 1991, and I got to know Paul and Jim. Jim worked with Paul Farmer, Partners in Healthcare, for 17 years. And then he became president at Dartmouth. Then he was tapped by President Obama to lead the World Bank. Paul continued his work. The most seminal care, the most amazing care for the poorest of the poor, the most destitute in Haiti, in Rwanda, in Peru, Russian prisoners with multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, Native American reservations, got many awards. Some were multi-million-dollar awards. He told his wife, keep enough for the groceries, electricity, rest goes into the foundation. Paul Farmer once said, the idea that some lives matter less than others is the root of all that's evil in this world. His favorite billboard, one he encountered in Haiti some 30 years ago, the only true nation is humanity. This is a person with end-stage HIV, AIDS in Haiti, skeleton, dying. Paul Farmer and Jim Kim are now attendings at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. They go with an empty suitcase to the pharmacy, sweet talk their way into the pharmacist, giving them $93,000 worth of antiretrovirals. They fly to Haiti, administer it to this man, and this is the same individual, fully recovered, beautiful baby. The story of Paul Farmer's work is told by Tracy Kidder, 3 times Pulitzer Prize winner. He followed Paul Farmer for 3 years, and he wrote a book. It's called Mountains Beyond Mountains, The Quest of Dr. Paul Farmer, a man who would cure the world. There's also a wonderful documentary that you can watch on Netflix. It's called Bending the Arc, and it's based on a quote by the late Martin Luther King Jr., who once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." So Paul Farmer sees patients all day in Rwanda. February 21st, 1922, 62 years of age, goes to sleep. In the middle of the night, he has a fatal heart attack. And accolades from all over the world. Presidents, Nobel laureates, ordinary people. Jim Kim flew with his family to Rwanda to bring Paul's body back to Miami, where he grew up with 5 siblings in an old school bus converted into a mobile home. We had a wonderful ceremony at Harvard Medical School. I went with my wife and other friends, 200 people, below freezing, February, 1 hour. All the talks were given by students he had inspired from around the world, other than one by our head dean, George Daly, 5 minutes. And at the end, he said, Paul Farmer will go down as the greatest humanitarian of our time, perhaps all time. And he looked at the audience and he said, and he was my mentor. But the head dean said that of a former student. Amazing guy. Now, here are 5 things you see on this screen. I should have said I love you more often. I should have had the courage to pursue my dreams, aspirations. I should have traveled more. I should have been the bigger person and said, sorry, I should have spent more time with my friends. Who says this? You know it. People in hospice. This is a nurse who interviewed like 800 people dying. And what are your greatest regrets in life? Nobody said, belong to 3 country clubs, drive a new Ferrari every 6 months, right? Live in a mansion. You know, you do all that stuff, you'll be happy for 6 months, then you get used to it. This phenomenon is called hedonic adaptation. This is what we should be doing now. None of us should have any of these regrets on our deathbed. Here's a young lady by the name of Mariah Smith. When she was adopted, when she was born, she was abandoned outside an orphanage. Day 1, somebody rings the bell, they come out, they see a newborn baby. Grows up in the orphanage for 2 years. Then a lovely family in Virginia adopts her. And she goes with her mother to get takeout dinner. She's about to sit in the car, it's winter, it's freezing, with all the food. She sees a homeless guy sitting on the curb. Says, Mom, I'm going to give him the food. Mother says, yeah, give him the food. We'll have soup, sandwiches. So she gives him the food. She goes home. She says, I got to go back. He was shivering. I have 2 blankets. Why do I need 2? I'm going to give him the clean blanket. She goes, gives him the blanket. She's now known as the blanket girl. She has given away now more than 200,000 blankets. Merchants in the area support her. Chapters are opening up around the country. She goes at 11 o'clock midnight to these parks where these homeless people are there. Some of them refuse to go into shelters. Many are challenged. They're not taking their meds. Families have abandoned them. Big van full of boxes, blanket, water, insect repellent, vitamin D, nutrition bars. So she was asked, what was the reaction of the first guy you gave the blanket to? She said, oh my God. He looked up. It was a combination of shock and gratitude. It haunts me to this day, but it keeps me going, right? An angel amongst us. And I'm going to conclude with the story of Adam Braun. Adam Braun was studying at Brown, and he does a semester at sea. On a lark, every country he goes to in Africa and Asia, he, through an interpreter, picks an 8-year-old kid on the street and says, if you could have one wish in the world, what would it be? The girl, 8-year-old girl in an African country, she says to dance. He says, come on, she didn't get the question. Ask her again. She says, yeah, to dance. Another country, another young girl. She says, for my mother to be happy, healthy, hold my hand, walk me to school. He goes to India, he's mesmerized. Meets an 8-year-old beggar boy. You have one wish in the world, what would it be? And the boy says, a pencil. He says, what? Any wish in the world, you want a pencil? Ask him again. He repeats, a pencil. He sees these kids come out of school. He's begging outside the school. They sit on the wall next to him. They open their notebooks. They're waiting for their ride, their chauffeurs. And they have a pencil and they're writing and they're drawing and they're happy and they're hugging. He thinks, oh, my ticket to happiness is a pencil. So Adam Braun buys a whole ton of pencils. Every country he goes to, he doles out pencils to kids on the street. He comes back to New York. He's haunted by the image of this beggar, 8 years of age. All he wanted was a pencil. Okay, I'm going to create a foundation, promise of a pencil. I'm going to open a school in Africa. So he starts the foundation. He has now built, I need to update this, I looked it up last week, more than 500 schools all over Latin America, Africa, Asia. On average, it costs him $40,000 to build a school. Teachers are flocking to teach at his school, best teachers. Some are volunteering. He's invited to a rooftop in Manhattan. And he goes there, and everyone there is more than 60 years of age, mostly white men. And he's 27, feeling like a fish out of water. And this gentleman walks over and says, young man, what do you do? He said, I have a non-profit. And before he can finish the sentence, the guy thumbs his nose and walks off. As he's walking off, he says, sir, may I have your card? The guy hands him a card. He sends him an email 3 days later. Please spare 20 minutes, have a cup of coffee with me. And the guy agrees. See, when you use the word non-profit, it can have a negative connotation. What does the CEO make? 1.5 million going on golf junkets? 70% goes into overhead. So he meets with them and he says, I don't have a non-profit. I have a for-purpose organization. We build schools for poor children. And the guy takes out his checkbook and writes him a check for 20 grand on the spot. Half a school. So better to use the word for purpose. His grandmother is 4 feet 11 inches tall. And she's a Holocaust survivor. Her name, ironically, is Eva Braun. And Adam and she are very close. He calls her Ma. And she says to him one day, Adam, you were working for Bain, Romney in Boston. What is this pencil thing you're doing? He said, come on, come, let's meet. He opens his computer. He shows 3 slides. Poor kids playing in the dirt. Then a first school he built, spanking new school. Then the third slide, as you climb up the steps, enter the foyer. It says, this school is dedicated to Ma, Eva Braun. And then the two of them hug and sob. He found his purpose in life. One interaction with that 8-year-old beggar boy in India. So every life has a measure of sorrow. Sometimes it is this that awakens us. I'm going to conclude with Papa Jaime's story. Papa Jaime is from country Colombia. He's a friend. I consider him a mentor. He's an inspiration. He's now 70 years of age. At age 20, he's standing at the street corner in Bogota. And across the street, there's a sewer. And these orphans live in the sewer. He's saying, I should help these kids. A 7-year-old girl emerges, smiling at him. Beautiful girl. As they're having this interchange, a car comes around the corner, stops in the middle of the street, window rolls down, somebody tosses a toy, yellow school bus, Fisher-Price toy, the car recedes. This girl has never possessed a toy. She comes running up to the street, picks up the toy. She's beaming with joy looking at Jaime Aramillo. And tragically, as they're having this interchange, a speeding truck comes around the corner, kills her. And he says to himself, this is it. This is my calling in life. He has adopted, housed, schooled, and fed 100,000 orphans. 50 years. So he's a national hero, hence the term Papa Jaime. Said, Papa, how do you pay for it? How many staff do you have? Sanjiv, 150 staff. I have a bakery. The only thing we make is cookies. I've convinced all the restaurants, top restaurants, Medellin, Bogota, to put a cookie jar next to the cash register. People are leaving, they grab a cookie, there's a shoebox with a slit, they drop change. Sometimes $1, I get 50% of my needs that way. I said, wow, what about the other 50%? I'm a motivational speaker. I speak all over Latin America and I plow my honorarium into the foundation. I said, Papa, that doesn't cut it. I know what motivational speakers get. So he smiles, he says, you're right. Sanjeev, every time I need money out of the blue, somebody helps me. Says 3 weeks ago, I needed $41,000 to pay my bills, electricity bills, other bills. I go to 3 banks, they turn me down. Papa, you already got loans with us at such a low rate. Please don't tell anyone, but we can't give you more loans. So he's coming back to his office. There's a street woman across the street. Papa Jaime crosses the street, gives him a hug. He says, hey, you're hungry? Come to the office. So she's in his office having coffee and eating cookies. He's on the phone calling 3 other bankers, and she can tell that he's being turned down. He looks at him, she says, Papa, how much money do you need? He said, Sanjeev, I told her I need $41,000. She smiles at him, looks at him and says, Papa, I give it to you. He said, Sanjeev, I said to myself, she's cuckoo. The street woman. She opened her purse, she had $60,000. Son had sent her the money. She was supposed to go to a bank, deposit, sign a piece of paper, move into a home. She said, I'm okay on the street. The weather's good. I've saved some other money. I can move later. You need it. Your children need it. Take it now. No questions asked. You can return it if you want, when you want. It's that kind of thing happens to me all the time. And if you meet him, you'll see the bliss in his eyes. He found his purpose 50 years ago. He showed me the photograph of a young lady with 3rd-degree burns on the entire left side of her body. I said, what? What happened? She said, one of the new orphans. They're told not to leave the orphanage. Don't go begging. She left. She was begging outside a fancy restaurant. The restaurant owner called the police. It was not the police, a death squad that showed up, put her in the gutter and torched her. He rescued her, 17 reconstructive surgeries. She then comes to America on a scholarship, computer sciences, back home, married, 3-year-old kid. Shows me the photograph of the 3-year-old kid. He's Sanjeev, that's my grandchild. Raised with my biological grandchild. But the next moment, he showed me the photograph of a young man dressed in impeccable white with a tennis racket, flanked by Pete Sampras and Agassi, junior national champion of tennis in Colombia. Kids have grown up to become nurses, accountants, computer scientists, professional athletes, surgeons. Many of them are giving back to the foundation. But he found his purpose in life. witnessing the tragic death of that 7-year-old beautiful girl 50 years ago. I'll conclude with this. Your my purpose doesn't have to be daunting, audacious, bold. It can be small, that can grow. The parable is this young girl, there are 10,000 starfish stranded on a beach. She picks one, twirls it, throws it into the ocean and darts off. Picks another one, same thing. There's an old man sitting in a rocking chair, smoking a pipe, reading a book. He says, young lady, come here. What are you doing? Do you think you're making a difference? 10,000 starfish stranded here. Look across. Another beach, 15,000. So she picks a starfish, twirls it, throws it into the ocean. It darts off. She looks at the old man and says, it made a difference to that one. Right? We can all make a difference. So I'll conclude with my purpose in life because I get asked this all the time. It's a little long, but it's to fulfill my dharma. Dharma is a Sanskrit word which means vocation, moral compass, authenticity, truth. To teach medicine about leadership and happiness, to do it grounded in humility with an ardent desire to learn every single day, to celebrate with gratitude my family, friends, colleagues, students, and patients who inspire me in countless ways, and in some small measure, inspire everyone I meet on this amazing life journey. I invite you to reflect on what gives you the greatest joy and resonates for you. If you haven't done it, take a few minutes, later, write it down. Share it with your family and friends. It is my fervent hope that you have either found your purpose in life or you will find it. And living it will give you unbridled joy and light up every single day of your life. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.